We're decorating Christmas cookies. There's trees. I did some pretty awful looking gingerbread men. Julia did the snowman. They were better. They usually had a hat, but they didn't have a hat. And we're putting them in little bags with gingerbread men. Here's Adam's thumbprint shortbreads with his homemade apricot filling. Don't those look wonderful? They are so good. And Adam's mother, who is a wonderful cook too, makes her own homemade caramels, and she sent us a whole tin. Hi YouTube friends, good morning. This is December 21st. I had to think for a second. This is the first day I feel like I can really sit back, relax in my flannel, stay home a bit, and not have to think about what I have to do. I've done my last farmer's market for the year. We had our Christmas program last night at church. Some of my music is done. I've got almost all of my packages shipped off that I need to ship off, and now I can think about other things and resting. I am knitting, and so I'll be sharing in my next video my knitting project on that hat that I started. Is turning out well. But this video is about baking. This is baking Christmas cookies, and I'm not going to say any more because the pictures will speak for themselves. I'm making Snowball cookies, and Adam did some kolache, and we had a cookie exchange at church, and we ended up with lots of cookies. So without further ado, as they say, here are the cookies. Today I am making Snowball cookies. These might be my favorite cookies ever. I know my mother loves them. When I sent them to her last Christmas, and she told me she never wants anything else for Christmas. She just wants a tin of these. I call them pecan cookies. They're also Christmas cookies, Christmas balls. They only have butter, powdered sugar, vanilla, some flour, and pecans. They mostly have a lovely pecan and butter flavor. So here's the recipe as I wrote it out last year. I really had to hunt to find this for some reason. So let me show you what I've done so far. I have chopped 2 cups of pecans. It says finely chopped. I did this with a knife. I also have somewhere in my kitchen a cool little, oh, I know where it is. Let me show it to you. Here it is. This is a little nut chopper mechanism. My mother had one of these when I was growing up, and I think I bought one for myself just because it brings back such memories. Can I get it off with one hand? It has this wonderful little grinding mechanism that you turn with a crank, and it really cuts up your nuts. And if you are not in the mood to use a knife, then that's a nice thing to have. I don't cook enough to validate having that, but I have it anyway. So my nuts are finely chopped, and I have toasted them very lightly in a little skillet on the stove. However, you know me, I forgot about them, and I burned a few and had to throw a few out. They were just a little too dark. I think the toasting is supposed to warm them and release their oils, because I'm sure that's where the flavor is. I had 2 already open bags of pecans in my freezer from last year, so I didn't have to buy any more. And they do say, I read online, you can freeze pecans for up to 2 years and they should still be fine. All right, let's look over at the mixer. I'm beating 2 sticks of butter over here. I think I'm making 2 batches, but I'm going to make them one at a time. So this is almost ready to add my powdered sugar. Now it says to only add 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar. The recipe calls for 2 cups, but the rest of it is the sugar that you're going to roll the cookies in later. And I'm going to blend this until it's smooth. That's what it says anyway. Looks like it's getting there. I better straighten down the sides. That's looking lovely and creamy. What do you think? I think so. Now we're going to go down to low speed, and we're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Now I remember watching one of those old John Stossel investigative reports on TV one time, and what he was investigating was, is there really any noticeable difference between imitation vanilla extract or vanilla flavor, which is tragically what I'm using. And the real McCoy, which is so expensive. You know how people get it in Mexico and stuff like that. And they actually did a taste test with some of the really best chefs around, and they couldn't tell a difference. So at that point I was like, you know what? I don't have much of a palate anyway. I might as well buy the cheap stuff. Now I'm going to add 2 1/4 cups of flour, and this dough is going to become very stiff. So I'll show you that when I'm done. You can see now that the dough is really, really stiff, okay? And this is why it makes it so easy to put it into little balls, because it looks like that. Now I'm going to put in a cup of pecans, and I beat this at high speed to get those incorporated, and then I'm going to form it into a ball or a disc and refrigerate it for an hour to let the butter harden. So here's your finished dough. That's about the consistency you're looking for. Okay, nice and firm with a good scattering of nuts in there. Okay, well, my cookie dough is in the refrigerator, and I have to wait an hour, and I have to also wait for my next batch for the butter to soften, and I have nothing to do. So I thought I would use a recipe that I just found on with Chef John on Food Wishes, and I'll try to make a link to this in the description to his video, of making caramelized nuts. He's just so good. I trust his recipes. So he does a combination of nuts. I'm using all the rest of my pecans. I want to use them all up because they've been frozen, and I just don't want to put them back in the freezer. I think they might lose flavor. So I've got pecans. We had a few walnuts, a few almonds, and a few peanuts. And I kind of generally have half pecans and half everything else. And I put a little salt, I'd say a little over a teaspoon of salt in this, because you want them a little salty with the salty sweet combo. And then I grated a little, whoop, I dropped him. Uh-oh, don't want to drop him. This is some nutmeg, and so I grated some nutmeg into here. And then I'm going to end with some, we keep a blend of allspice and cinnamon in one of our used spice jars. This was some rosemary, once upon a time. We love allspice and cinnamon together and use it in place of just straight cinnamon in so many things. So I'm going to add that, and then I'll show you the rest of the recipe. Now, Chef John's nuts that he makes are really spicy nuts, and so he put cayenne pepper and cumin and things like that, and I don't really want that flavor in my pecans, and so that's why I've used other kind of more pumpkin pie kind of spices almost, the nutmeg and the cinnamon, the allspice. There is a bit of salt in there, and that should offset the sweetness, but the candiedness here is really very sweet. And this is what he does. He has a tablespoon or 2 of butter, and then you add a ½ cup of sugar. And you're going to let the butter melt and the sugar dissolve. You're also going to add a ¼ cup of water. This will be the sugar glaze. On your pecans. You can use any nuts. I mean, ideally I might have done, I really was planning on just doing this with pecans, but then when I watched his recipe on YouTube and realized he was using a combination of nuts, I thought about the walnuts that were sitting around and the peanuts and the almonds, and as we get more and more treats toward Christmas, the chances of us sitting down and just eating a handful of almonds are quite slim. Okay, so I'm going to add about a ¼ cup of water to this. This is on medium heat. And then he says to let this cook on medium heat until it starts to bubble around the edges. You don't want it to come to a rip and roaring boiling. Well, I left that for mere moments and it started to bubble. I'm so glad I came and rescued it before it did anything too scary, because this is a day when I haven't broken or dropped anything yet, and I don't want to ruin that good record. So let's put that on our nuts. Now, I had a little nibble of one of these, and oh my goodness, I think it was a peanut. It was so good. Oh, I'm so excited about this. Time to bake them in a 350-degree oven, spread out on a cookie sheet for, I think he said 10 minutes. And let me show you what I'm putting on my cookie sheet. If you already have one or two of these, you're in good company. These are the most fabulous. This particular one is made by Mrs. Anderson's Baking. We've also had a sur la table one that was very expensive years ago that a friend bought us, and we used that one up. This is one of those silicone baking pads, and I mean nothing sticks to it, and it'll do a great job on this. So I'm going to spread these out, bake them for 10 minutes, and I'll tell you what we're doing next. So here are our finished pecans, walnuts, peanuts, and almonds. And they look wonderful. I did feel like they were a little more salty than I wanted, so at the very end when I pulled them out of the oven the last time, I sprinkled some brown sugar on them to kind of offset the salt, and I think I like them. Yes, that's very, very nice. I think I might bag some of these and give them away for friends or take them to church, because we don't need this much snacky poo around the house. But boy, that sure was fun. I'm going to do that next year too. Okay, I got so busy with cooking that I forgot to show you everything, but here are my Snowball cookies. They've just come out of the oven. They cooked at 350 for 15 minutes, and they're kind of puffy. There's really not any leavening agent or rising agent in these cookies at all. There's no eggs, no baking powder or soda. So they're still warm. You let them sit. They're very delicate. You let them sit for about 5 minutes before you do this, and you take them off of their little pan. You put them into a bowl of powdered sugar, and you have to be really careful with them. I crumbled one. I didn't even intend to do that. If you have too much pecan in there, that can tend to make the dough, that can make the dough crumble. So I just put them in there and kind of roll around the bottom, and put some on the top. And then you put them on a rack. Don't they look pretty? I love these. And you let them cool completely, and then if you want to put them back into the some more powdered sugar, you can. I do that because I think it makes them look really good. Right now they still have a good bit of the beigey brown dough showing. It's not dough, it is cooked. But if you put more powdered sugar on, they look really like little snowballs. So that's the recipe. They are delightful, and I'll be sending these in the mail. I pack them really well in a tin. All right, well, it's time for that second coating of powdered sugar. And I really think it makes a difference to put on that second coating. And I just do this little tappy thing to take off the excess. But let me show you the difference. This is without the second coat, and this is with. And doesn't it make a difference in how they look? So I think it's very much worth doing this, and it only takes a second to do it. Now I'm going to get these. These are fully cooled now, and I'm going to get them into their boxes and get them in the mail, because shipping things this year during the pandemic, everybody's ordering so many things, and all the mail and UPS and FedEx and everything is going quite slowly. So I'm not sure that these will arrive in time for Christmas to my mother, and I think my mother-in-law, I think I'll send her some too. This might be a gift for the mothers in our lives. And I'll keep a few for myself. All right. Do you love these cookies as much as I do? I think they're about my favorite cookie ever. Aren't they just lovely? Well, I have a tin full of my lovely Snowball cookies. I put them in a Ziploc and separated by wax paper, trying to keep them really intact. This should protect them well, and then this will go inside of a padded box. And I've got 4 bags of lovely candied nuts, and a few left over for us. I think this was a really good morning, and I'll be cooking the second batch of those cookies soon and sending them off as well. Thanks for joining me. Crossing the